This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports. You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host Keith Angle on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Hey guys, Keith Angle for TGI Sports Talk right here on Northeast Streaming Sports Talk. Welcome everybody to my weekly vlog, and this is kind of part two. Last week I went off a lot on the Hall of Fame voting that was going to be released on the 25th this past Tuesday, I guess it was, or Wednesday. Don't forget, I don't even know what day it is, but whatever. Look I talked last week about the fact that Bonds and Clemens specifically, and also Schilling and Sammy Sosa were on their last chance to get voted in by the writers. I hold out very little hope for them to get in on the Veterans Committee, and they all fell short in the voting. Didn't think Schilling should get in anyway because I think he's borderline Hall of Fame, and if you're borderline, to me, you don't get in. But for the writers to vote in David Ortiz, also suspected of steroid use throughout his career, or at least in parts of his career. Don't forget, Minnesota gave up on him in the early or late 90s, excuse me. And when he went on to Boston, his career took off. And the rumors were always there that he was involved with steroid use. But David Ortiz gets voted in actually his first year of eligibility, I believe. If I'm wrong, I apologize. I know he retired in 2016, so I'm doing the math in my head. For him to get voted in, but also be in the same bucket of suspected steroid abusers or cheaters. And again, I said they should be in the Hall of Fame, and warts and all. It should all be on their plaque. But you leave out a much better baseball player when we're talking about position players like Barry Bonds, because he contributed in the field as well, where David Ortiz really didn't. Barry Bonds could run, at least early in his career, to the middle of his career. And Barry Bonds was a Hall of Famer before steroids was ever mentioned. But he's blackballed. Roger Clemens is blackballed by the writers. And the Hall of Fame needs to take the vote away from the writers because, number one, or either that or change their criteria. It's unfair to take it away from the writers and punish guys like, friends of this show like Kevin Kernan and guys like this, Mike Vaccaro, who might have Hall of Fame votes. They know what to do with them. They watch the games. They pay attention to what's going on in the game of baseball, and they know what's wrong and what's right with it. There's so many guys out there who have a vote that don't even watch games anymore. And they let it be a popularity contest. If Ortiz is in a Hall of Fame and Barry Bonds isn't, it's for one reason: Barry Bonds was a jerk, and these guys are judging him because of his character. That character flaw, the fact that he did not get along with people, the fact that he didn't give out nice, great quotes, and he's not Big Papi, who was this big, lovable teddy bear in a lot of guys' minds and would give great post-game comments. Now, I'm not trying to take away from David Ortiz's career, steroids or not. He was a great player. He was in the top 10 at MVP voting 5 or 6 times. All-star probably, 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, probably 10 times. Great post-game. I do this all the time. Postseason pitcher. Sorry, I'm all wound up. Postseason player. Just thinking of Schilling. I'm not trying to take away from David Ortiz's career. But tell me how he gets in a Hall of Fame and Barry Bonds doesn't, when they're suspected of the very same thing. And Ortiz's numbers, number one, if you want to just look at numbers, don't compare to Bonds's. His impact in a game wasn't as great as Bonds or Clemens in my mind. It wasn't Boston. So this is just more nonsense out of the writers. And I understand that, the Hall of Fame is not affiliated theory. It's not run by the Major League Baseball. And I don't want to blame Major League Baseball, right? But, these guys, I don't understand it. If you're a cheater, you're a cheater. And you're for keeping Bonds and Clemens out because they are suspected of steroid use, then David Ortiz has to be kept out. And again, I don't think any of them should be kept out. I think they should go in, tell their entire story, put their plaque up, and say how good in what they did good and what they were accused of doing. It's just nonsensical in my mind. And what planet can Barry Bonds not be in a Hall of Fame, but David Ortiz can be? And Minnie Minoso can be. Antonio Oliva can be. Again, these guys who got voted in this year by the Veterans Committee, God bless them. I'm okay with Gil Hodges getting in the Hall of Fame. I'm okay with Tony Oliva getting in the Hall of Fame. I'm okay with some of the guys they put in. Now, I got some arguments there, too, which I think I may have brought up in a previous vlog. If I didn't, I probably won't get into them too deep today because that's not what I'm talking about. But if those guys are in, guys like Don Mattingly ought to be in, too. But that's not what I'm talking about. But you take any one of those guys and tell me that they were a better player and a more influential or integral player on their teams than Barry Bonds or Roger Clemens. I just don't get it. And I know the writers certainly have a different agenda than the Veterans Committee or whatever we're calling the guys who vote in, the guys who are no longer eligible to be voted on by the writers. They've got different agendas. I don't think Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens will fare any better with this Veterans Committee than they did with the writers, because the Veterans Committee is much harder on the steroid question. And we all thought that the writers had a problem with Bonds and Clemens because of the steroid question. But we voted in yesterday or this week David Ortiz, whose numbers are very good, but pale in comparison to Barry Bonds. He pales in comparison to Bonds as a player, but he was better liked by the writers, by the fans. And it's become a popularity contest now. You've lost, you're getting hypocritical when you're telling me you're keeping out guys because of steroids. And if that's your opinion, God bless you. We've all got a right to it. Mine is different. But you become a hypocrite when you say you're keeping these guys out because of steroids, but you voted for David Ortiz despite the steroid rumors. Why? Why is that not hypocrisy at its highest? Why are not all steroid cheaters equal? Either you vote them in or you keep them out. You can't pick and choose based on your popular opinion of that person. I'm no big fan of Barry Bonds, believe me, or even Roger Clemens and the way they treated fans, or they treated sports writers, or they treated the game itself. But they were great players, and they deserve to be honored in the Hall of Fame and be exposed for the things that they were accused of at the same time. You can't vote in one guy and leave out guys who are a step above that guy even. Not to say David Ortiz shouldn't go based on merit. All things being equal, your thoughts on keeping guys out because of steroid questions should be equal as well. You're hypocrites, some of you guys in the voting community. And if you voted for Ortiz and you voted for the other two guys, you're off my list. It's the guys who didn't. Keith Angle, TGI Sports Talk, right here in Northeast Streaming Sports. And you'll see these vlogs weekly on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and of course, here on the Roku channel. See you later, guys. Keith Angle, TGI Sports Talk. Have a great day.